As a child, I was always fascinated by nature and wildlife. I would spend many hours down by the creek in my neighborhood looking at caterpillars, just whatever I could find, watching fish in the creek. And I remember when I was about 9 years old or 10 years old, they started clearing the forest where I lived, and I was really upset over that. I was really upset that I would see deer prints in the mud and their home was being destroyed, and no one seemed concerned by it. And I said to my parents, I said, we need to do something about this. And they said, well, that's not our land. We can't do anything about it. The purpose of that land is to build houses. So I felt helpless, but at the same time, I knew that there was something I had to do. Probably about 13 years old, I decided to stop eating animals. So I was in 8th grade, and I just progressed years later. Until I was 18 years old, I decided to go vegan. I tried, but I never really had the resources that we have today. So I tried, but I was in high school. It was just difficult at the time. But then I made the commitment. I said, I'm never eating animal products again. And that was it'll be 32 years this December. And I never looked back. And instead, over those decades, I always said, okay, that's not enough. Like, okay, I don't eat animal products, but what else am I doing that harms animals? What else am I doing that harms the future and takes away habitat from animals? And am I being a fair person to the planet? Am I using more than I need to? Am I being respectful of my resources? Am I trying to replenish my resources and reduce my impact and trying to live more gently on the planet? For the last 10 years, if not longer, probably closer to 20 years, I have been working on refining and trying to improve, because it takes a lot to reverse what society teaches you as normal. It takes a lot to say, you know what, that's not normal. I'm going to do something differently. And it's not really well received by others. They don't understand it. And you're going to kind of be going to the beat of your own drum. But I felt it was the right thing to do. And so I've been working on that for years now. And then I met John Pierre, and we were always talking about the same thing, like how we could be doing better, how we could be doing more. And we created Living with Harmony in 2013. And since then, we've been trying to build Living with Harmony, trying to educate who we can. We have a large online presence. We're working on getting our sanctuary going, or our center where people can come learn how to live a life that's gentler on the planet. We're working on many things now to try to teach people how to garden veganically, which doesn't use the typical animal products that organic gardening uses. They use blood meal and bone meal. There's a lot of plastic. They still use pesticides, but they're considered to be organic, so they break down in a certain period of time. But we don't want to cause harm, so we want to create a healthy space, healthy soils that are more sustainable. So I've been working on that a long time through trial and error, and how we can get that going in this model garden, which is our community garden, and so I can do that on a much larger scale.
One of the things that Living with Harmony has been talking about for a long time is that the doomsday clock is almost at midnight. And we've been telling people for ages that, you know, we need to really be more responsible for what we're consuming and how much we're consuming, and where we're getting our products from and how much we're using of these resources, because the resources from nature, you know, have limitations. And so our biggest concern is that, you know, right now we're just seeing more and more of a population boom, where the earth is already at its tipping point with human beings. And as more and more people, you know, get put on planet Earth, more and more resources are being used and more demands on the planet are being created. So we're very concerned about that. And also just the lack of respect. You know, it's like when you go to a funeral, you're there to show respect to the person that passed away. It's not necessarily the person's gonna thank you because they're passed away. It's the same thing with the way we live our life. We want to be respectful to Mother Nature and what she has given us, and we don't need to be taking more than what we need, what we require. And I think that we live in a society where we're overindulging all the time in everything in excess. And we're very conscientious about the water that we use, the foods that we buy, how much we consume. We do our very best to not really be consumers, and we try to shop at thrift stores, so we use things that are already out there, that we don't create another demand. We're not really big into like giving new things like as presents or anything. We don't mind giving things to people, but we prefer to educate people. And we think that most people in America have too much. And I think we see a lot of parents that are raising their children, and the work that I do with clients, nutrition and fitness and emotional work, the kids that I'm working with are saying that they wish their parents would spend more time with them instead of buying the latest computers or games or whatever they're purchasing. They want to have more quality time with their family, and they want to connect with their family. And these are the things that are important. My background is really in geriatrics, and that's what I've done most of my career. And one thing I've never seen is somebody that's a senior on their deathbed saying they wish they had more money, or wish they had more cars, or wish they had more possessions. What they're always saying is, I wish I would have connected with my brother or my sister. I wish, like in the days when I was teaching at retirement homes, they'd always say, I wish I would have made that call, or I wish I would have wrote that letter to them and said, I'm sorry. So that's what people are looking for at the end of their life. They're not looking for more possessions and taking more. They wish they would have given more. So one of the central tenets of what we do with Living with Harmony is being respectful and kind, and trying to do our best to protect and serve the planet, be ambassadors and disciples of Mother Nature.
You don't even notice anymore when you go into a store and it's all plastic. Everything is encased in plastic. And it's like, how healthy is that? The average person eats the amount of plastic, microplastics in a credit card, the weight of a credit card every week. And so that all comes from our packaging. It comes from how our food is processed. It comes from our storage containers, putting things in plastic and plastic bags for produce. It's just, plastic is all around us, and it's almost unavoidable. But we're trying to make things easier, so the new convenience kills is the typical current convenience. But we want to make things that are easy for people, so people can say, I can do that. I can get a water filter and filter my own water and not purchase plastic bottles. I can use a reusable coffee cup if I go out to coffee shops. This is before, but we're hoping to get back to that place. Or when I go to a restaurant, I can bring my own carry-out container. I don't need to use their paper containers. I can say, no, thank you. I always have utensils in my purse or my bag. So these are little things that anyone can do where they're reducing their dependency on these single-use plastic items that are just everywhere, and just refusing them. So being prepared, and then also knowing what the repercussions are when you do take those utensils. When you throw something away, where is away? It just goes somewhere else. It leaves your home or your restaurant's trash can to a landfill, which ends up in the ocean perhaps, or in the waterways somewhere else, or in an animal's body somewhere else, or in you, as it breaks down into little pieces and becomes microplastics, and then you consume it through your water. So it's unavoidable, but one way to do that is to take a stance and to refuse these items. In our educational center, we'll have gardens, native plants, native landscaping, planting water-wise plants, not having a lawn, having alternatives to a lawn that is low water, and just showing people how to eat healthier, live healthier, and through the choices and through the actions that they take on a daily basis. And like I said, trying to make it easier for people, because it's foreign now to a lot of people. Like, I can't imagine making my own hummus. That sounds so complicated, but you throw beans and tahini and lemon and garlic and whatever seasonings in a blender or a food processor, and there's your hummus. And you don't need to get the plastic hummus, which has the microplastics, which will go into somewhere unknown place when you're done with that container. And it's required petroleum to make that container, all the pipelines and all the oil explosions in the ocean, the Gulf of Mexico, and all this contamination from all this plastic. Just remember that all plastic is made from petroleum, and so we're depending on that. They say that the petroleum industry, when they're trying to reduce it through other ways, is alive and kicking through the disposable or through the plastics industry. We're keeping them alive, and we're giving them a market.
I've worked with so many different people, from professional athletes to seniors to people with all sorts of disorders, cognitively and physically, people who have been very wealthy and celebrities. And the one thing that I've learned is that you don't really know the trauma or the stress that somebody has when they're standing in front of you. And everybody's had some sort of trauma or stress, so we should learn to be kind to everyone and make sure that when we meet somebody, that we make sure that when they leave, they left a better person, that you extended love and compassion to them. You know, when I was in the retirement home and working with seniors, one of the things that I always say to them is, how would you feel that if you were taking the elevator up to your room at night and someone got in the elevator and was kind of short with you and kind of snappy, and you yelled back at them? I said, how would you feel if the next day that you heard that they passed away? And almost universally, they all say they'd feel bad. And I would ask them, why would you feel bad? And they all said the same thing, because the last thing that they heard was me being mean to them. And I said, well, let's turn it around. And what happened if somebody got in the elevator and was kind of short and snappy with you? And instead you said, hey, it sounds like you've had a hard day. Would you like to talk about it? Can I help you in any way? And then the next day you found they passed away. What would you think? And they all say, well, I tried. I at least tried to be kind to them. And I think that's really the most important thing, is we need to learn to be more ambassadors of kindness and love. And then we can learn to extend that. If we can extend that to not only people, but then to animals, and then the things that we do in life, with nature, being respectful of nature. I think those are things that are so very important for all of us to work on, is just being kind.